We'll start with the pledge, and I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everybody. We're back from the break, and we've been going since 5 o'clock because we were looking at plans for phase 1 of the capital projects, and that's all going out soon, and so progress continues. There are things we have to deal with tonight. And Zach, I don't know that we have any modifications to the agenda. I didn't see anything. Anyone? We're good. Administrators in the room? Anything? Okay. Paid people in the room, right? We're volunteers over here, right? Okay. Public comment period. If we have anyone.
Yes, we do. My apologies if I cannot pronounce the name correctly. Diana Cole, is that correct?
Yes. Hello. Actually, Lubell and I have met several times.
Yeah.
And I have also met with Jason Trumbull, several administrators, teachers, and I was here last year and probably the year before. I'm a marriage and family therapist, a long time in Ithaca, and I'm also a graduate of Ithaca High School, and so my daughter's graduated, so I have a lot of investment in having a great education here. As you know, a marriage and family therapist is helping people with dysfunctional relationships of all kinds. And as you know, we've had many school shootings, lots of addictions. Actually, the preteen suicide is now rising. And we have also here locally, I know we had the issue of canceling the play Comeback of Notre Dame due to the insensitivity of diversity. So you can see we have a lot of things that we need to pay attention to. And our education should be around healthy relationship skills, because we're not taught that, are we? We're not taught how to parent, and therefore us therapists are trying to fix, and it just isn't working. We should be doing prevention. I think you all agree with me. And most of the meetings I've had with the Ithaca School District agree with me. The thing is that we don't make it a priority. So the reason I'm here tonight is because there is a curriculum. New York City is using it in 30 of its schools with a lot of success, with the academics doing well, the students doing well in the school, much better than they used to. The other thing is that the reason I'm also here is that the mayor wrote a letter for our community, which I will pass them out to you all. And I'll just read the last paragraph. It says, I, as mayor of Ithaca, support and encourage our superintendent, administrators, teachers, and parents to make it a priority to hire a teacher and offer a healthy relationship skills course as an elective in the Ithaca City School District. So I guess I'm just wanting to say that not only the mayor, but many of you hopefully will support this, because we want the best for our children. Where do we want to, or how do we learn to have loving, healthy relationships? How do we do that? We're not educated at all. Well, you know, as a parent, I did it by kind of the seat of my pants. And as you know, I have lots of people coming to me and other therapists to fix divorces, separations, so many family problems, as well as the addictions that I mentioned earlier. But what concerns me most is the preteen suicide is rising. So, if you have any other questions for me, I would love to answer those. If you want to contact me, I'm on the list there with my name and my phone number. My name is Diana Cole, K-O-H-L. Interesting spelling of the first name is D-I-A-N-E-A. And I will pass out these letters so that you have them for yourself. Are there any questions that you have for me?
Not at this time. This is your opportunity to speak to us.
Okay.
We appreciate that.
Okay. So I will just pass these out, and I guess my time is up, right?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much for hearing me. Let's see you all.
Very good.
You already have a copy.
Oh,
I think I sent you
yeah,
a personal one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Up next, we have Kara, Easton, and Andrew Kim. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Cora.
Cora.
Hi, I'm Cora, and we're here to talk about the Seal of Biliteracy that we both took part in this year. So this year we had 11 students participate in this program. Basically, it's a program that allows you to prove your proficiency in another language, and then you get acknowledgement of that on your diploma when you graduate. I did German, but there were 6 languages in total represented, including German, Korean, Spanish, Portuguese, Hungarian, and Russian.
So my name is Andrew. I'm a senior here at high school. I thought I'd just share a little bit about my experience going through the process. So I actually did Korean and German for the 2 languages.
Sure.
So I guess technically it's triliteracy, but went through it as a bilingual student. And for me, I reached out to my middle school German teacher as my mentor, who actually guided me through the process, and he really helped me with like the grammar, the linguistics, the fluidity of my presentation. And throughout this process, it became really evident to me that the importance of proactivity and working with others and being able to be on top of things on my own time. So this entire process started, I think, officially for us in December, and really it was up to us until April to figure out timing-wise how we want to prepare for the presentation, and then also working with our mentors to make sure we had all the paperwork in on time. And for me, German was, it was a big learning process, a lot of educational opportunities, not only because I learned more German, I became more fluent in it, but also because of the relationships and also like the many different learning opportunities in the process. For Korean, at home I speak Korean, so it was a little easier for me to get started on that process. But overall, I think both German and Korean taught me quite different lessons, but were very helpful overall, and definitely something students in the future should look into. I feel an educational opportunity that's hard to achieve without the actual going through the process yourself. So definitely something worth trying, getting to know more, and having more students involved. I think it's very important.
Yeah, so this year all 7 of the AP German students were involved. I don't believe any, there weren't announcements in the other AP language classes, but this also gives an opportunity for people who know another language at home that isn't taught at our school to have that acknowledged on their diploma and their resume in later life, so they can prove that they're a more well-rounded person than would be possibly shown on their transcript if they didn't take a class in their home language.
Outstanding. I would go, anything else, or, no, that's outstanding. I would go with the trilingual, I mean,
Yeah, 2 biliteracy skills, so yes.
no, exactly. No, thank you, that's great, thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you very much.
Great job, thank you. And I believe that's all who signed up. That's everyone who signed up, and I'm looking at probably going right to student reps, and gotta hear from Sam. Since Sam did interesting things, more interesting than I did over the last few weeks. So go ahead, Sam.
Hi, well, not a lot academically has happened other than the academics that you encounter on trips. The entire school was on our spring trips week last week. So people went everywhere. Some were local hiking, day trips, others were doing cooking. There was a trip doing cultural studies in DC, community service in New Orleans, and on the Akwesasne Iroquois Reservation up north. And I was doing language immersion in Ecuador. And so really a lot of amazing experiences. I've heard really fascinating stories from everybody who I've talked to, and now it's just readjusting to regular schooling for the rest of the year. So, yeah, that's my.
I don't know, Sam, sounds like learning to me.
That's
It's a far different experience than my time at the Guy School, I can tell you that. But that's what LACS, and of course at the Guy does very interesting things like the two young people that just spoke. We didn't do that back in the day either. So what's going now? What's going on now, JT? I mean, what's up?
You want to start this?
Sure, so ours are more traditional announcements per se than Ecuador, so, so starting with sports, our varsity baseball team is currently 1-0 in their sectional series against Corning, which we're all very excited about. And girls varsity lacrosse won the Class A championship for the 3rd year in a row, so we're all very proud of them. Girls varsity track also won Class A championship this year, which they're very excited about. And then Saturday, May 18th, the Junior Olympics, which are like a track and field day, were held at the IHS field where the varsity track team assisted in running the events and actually running with the kids. And it was ages 5 to 11, I believe. It was very cute. I was there and it was very nice atmosphere to see them win. They're all very excited.
And a beautiful day for it. Yeah. So, go ahead.
And then for clubs, I'm sure we're all aware of our very talented IHS Brain team. This past weekend, the IHS Brain team, they traveled to Atlanta, Georgia, to compete in the Quiz Bowl Nationals this year. Our team made it all the way to the quarterfinals and finished in 5th place, placing higher than any other team from not only New York State, but the Northeast in general. This ties their best ever finish at the Nationals, by the way. Also, our lovely K-pop dance club is having their dance recital this Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. I'm definitely going to that. Tickets can be bought this entire week at the cafeteria, and they're hoping to sell out their tickets for this performance.
So moving on to events not related to clubs, I'm going to talk about 3 senior events. The senior class tonight actually is holding a senior movie night at Cinemopolis where they'll be showing White Chicks. So I imagine a lot of the senior class will be there.
He's 20 years old.
It's old.
Yes. Hey, sorry, I'm talking about.
And then,
That's a sidebar, sorry.
and then the IHS senior class is having their senior trips June 11th to Six Flags in New Jersey, which we're all excited about.
I wish I could go to that, but I'm not a senior. But what I can go to is our IHS choir concert happening tomorrow after school. The annual, tomorrow the IHS choir concert is being held in Culp Auditorium at 6:30. And also, International Club just came back from cooking up a storm at their annual overnight trip to Camelback Indoor-Outdoor Water Park in the Poconos. Yes. And also,
I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
Also, now students are able to purchase this year's student yearbook in the cafeteria, so that's exciting. Also, you may have heard about this, but last Friday was IHS's 22nd annual Soldier Story Day, where local veterans were, I'm sure you've heard, local veterans were invited to share their stories and answer questions basically for students in their social studies classes. This year we were honored to have local community members talk about their experiences in the Korean War, Vietnam War, and even World War II. Yeah, and then also this week, Wednesday through Friday, IHS's Active Minds Mental Health Club, they're putting on a mental health awareness week where nearly every period students and classes can watch presentations on health and well-being in New York Lecture Hall. And also, next Wednesday, June 5th, the IHS band is having its spring concert also in Culp Auditorium.
Lots of
Yes.
lots of events going on. Again, a plug for all the concerts, they're outstanding performances. Anyone has a chance listening, band, orchestra, choir, it's really do a tremendous job. Not to mention all the other teams. Sectionals are coming up, right? Teams moving on. Once again, the women seem to be outperforming the men, which is only as it should be. So it's all good. Other board responses other than my water-induced babbling. Anything else for the good of the group right now? Chris, go ahead. Don't hesitate, Chris, go ahead.
That I know that Sam learned a lot on his trip, and everyone else at LACS learned a lot, besides having a lot of fun.
So much learning.
So much
Oh, that you're tired Comparative learning. That was a political jab, I'm sorry. I would actually just like to commend the students who are no longer here for the bilingual, trilingual
Yeah.
certification. That's a wonderful opportunity that students have. My husband, who grew up in an immigrant family many years ago and learned English before he went to kindergarten, talks of a time when kids were made to feel ashamed that they spoke another language, and it was something that they had to erase so that they could become American. And it is wonderful when you see kids either embracing their own heritage, enhancing it, learning other cultures, and really the key to the future is being able to communicate with other people in a really meaningful way. And I wish I'd had those advantages, and I just commend the kids who do it and the schools that make it possible.
Thank you, Beth.
I will relay that to them.
Thank you.
Anyone else right now? We good? Good. We'll keep moving on, and consent agenda.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Thank you. All right.
Second.
Okay.
Second by Chris. Variety of items, multiple pages, resolutions. There is. Pat, go ahead.
I just want to make a comment that I read through the 143 pages of books that we are deaccessionizing from our libraries, and there's some pretty good stuff in there, including a lot of medieval history that I think is going to be missed. But since many of those books are also in my own personal collections, if students feel lonely about it, come on over to my house.
And only, that wasn't SAT word in there, but I think I have the meaning. Right,
That's right in the notes there. They're deaccessionizing. That's what we're voting on.
So Pat, you should know at committee I also had a number of questions because there are a number of Black and African American history and African history books so I was asking how we went through the process of making the decisions. And so it's been a very thorough process over the past couple of years, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, they sent it through you, if I'm not mistaken as well, right? The email.
Yeah, it's everybody in the board.
What was that?
The review went to how they go
How
about
it went,
it,
yeah.
went to everybody in the board.
I did not see that. That's great.
No, I didn't see, no, it's actually a lot of books on different world cultures and histories. Looked like a lot of them were acquired in 2001, so I'm guessing it's a kind of a seasonal purge, but there's some classics there, I'm gonna say.
It may have been the committee, Pat.
You responded.
I did respond.
Oh, okay. Okay, keep going.
Oh, there's the word, okay. I missed it. Wow, okay, it's, I had other interests when I was in high school, right, so anyway.
Libraries don't acquire a book, they accession a book.
And then I'm skeptical about this word. I think it's a word.
Oh, okay, Moira, I thought it was me, but, I keep saying that Brad had a different educational experience at Cornell than I did, so. One question, I thought within the consent agenda, we were approving a bid, is that in here? Oh, I thought it was on,
No, we're actually rejecting a bid.
I saw rejecting a bid, but,
And the other is on state contract,
right,
so it's not a bid.
So the bathroom work in K building is.
Oh,
Is that?
That's on here, yes.
That's in here,
Okay.
that contract's here,
No, I was,
That's very exciting to see.
yes.
well, so folks know, when it is on here, we're gonna vote for it, we're gonna rebuild 2 bathrooms in K building. Right?
It's 6.1,
Yes.
top of that page.
Oh, it's one of those things that.
Yep.
Okay, I saw the rejection of the bid.
The rejection was of that LED sign.
Okay, oh, there it is. Okay, well, it's here somewhere. Anyway, I'm sure it's there, I saw it online. So it moved seconded, with all that, discussion, we're good, all in favor, that is everyone, and we are 8, correct? We are 8 tonight, Aldred, sir, good. So we'll just move right on, because we have had a long, go of it so far. So let's, just work session reports, we'll just roll through them. And there was not an advocacy meeting today, but
But we do have some
updates.
The first update is the health insurance reserve that we've been trying to get passed, legislation that would permit us to establish one, has made it through the assembly, been voted on in the assembly, and passed the assembly. So yes, one step is done. We're getting towards the end of the session, so those, the bill is still hung up in the Senate. But it's our understanding that sometimes bills that are held up in the Senate will get held up, if it's a local bill, may get held up to the very end, so we're hoping that things will keep moving as the time gets narrower. So we have, Ray is working and NISBA is working with us. The second thing the advocacy committee did is Brad and I actually were down in Albany, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, when we joined NISBA on some advocacy issues they wanted school districts to weigh in and help them out with, which had to do with some changes that got inserted into the state budget process that would change some of the voting rules that wasn't completely thought out and would kind of essentially create an unfunded mandate for school districts throughout the state, or potentially cause school districts to have to close on voting day, on election days. So,
Not just the election day, but primary days, village elections, all of those.
all of them, county, city, they basically didn't think this one out and just kind of put it in. So we were working with them, and then we also met with Assemblywoman Lifton just this past week, so.
Very good. And we still, is our lobbyist lobbying?
Yes,
That we
he's keeping
hired.
us posted, and he's been talking to Senator O'Mara and trying to help this bill get to the,
To the floor.
Great gig to get. Okay, so it's how Albany works, and so we will play the game. So very good. Thanks, Ann. Facilities and finance. Brad,
Sure, well.
there's kind of
The budget
some
passed.
news there, right?
The budget passed 4-1, the bond passed 4-1. We're moving ahead, facilities, we had conversation this afternoon on phase 1. Those documents will be going in, middle of June to FED, so that they can be bid, ready to go for next summer construction. When I say, I use the word summer broadly, I think some of them are gonna start in May. So I'll use summer broadly. Some of it won't be until summer of 2021, but they'll be underway next year. So we appreciate the voters trusting us to move ahead with those. Same with finance, passed the budget 4-1, so that we can fund all of our programs in this coming year. Facilities will obviously be spending a lot of time the next year or two on the bond project. Finance, we start all over again on next year's budget, on the following year's budget, at our meeting on June 18th. Time to get started. I mean, we've only got 11 months to go, so it's time to get started on the budget for the following year. So come to the meeting on the 18th, 5 o'clock here.
$131 million, spend it wisely,
Carefully.
wisely and prudently, to the highest and best use, right? That's, and HR.
HR. So, well, over the course of the year, we have continued to do what we've done for several years now, which is to have principals come and talk with us about their untenured teachers, so we can get a sense of who they are, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and so that lays the groundwork for us eventually having to make a decision about tenure. So those meetings are for obvious reasons, in executive session. The other meetings this year have focused on looking at our recruitment and retention plan, which was drafted a number of years ago, and we've been updating it, making notes about what has been accomplished since the recommendations were drafted, and looking ahead to what further endeavors we want to make to have a robust process for recruiting a diverse workforce, particularly teaching, but not exclusively, and being able to retain that workforce. Now, our next meeting is on June 4th, and we will continue with the recruitment and retention plan, and I think we'll also get a report on where we are in this year's hiring process. The last meeting I actually missed because of illness. Chris, any highlights from the last meeting?
No, I like that.
Okay.
It was riveting, but no.
Yeah.
And to be there. Elder curriculum.
Our last meeting, we actually focused exclusively on math, given the recent conversations in the community. And basically the fear that we were not managing the balance between excellence and equity appropriately. And to speak to the fear very clearly, folks have basically accused the district of trying to expand the path to access to algebra to kids who may not be able to manage it, while at the same time closing off options for highly motivated and highly talented kids that had been using those options to get to accelerated math before. So we began actually breaking down those myths and having conversations about facts. And I don't want to actually speak to that yet, because we're going to have a second meeting, and after that, we hope to actually do something in writing that we can distribute to parents who are concerned on both sides of the aisle. I'll just give you one example. There is fear that the accelerated test was going to go away, right, for fifth graders, and that just is patently not true. The test is going to be administered. Those kids who do well are going to receive seventh grade math in sixth grade if they want it. So that's just one of, I can go down a list of about 8 things that were either woefully misrepresented or just untrue. And we need to respect parents' concerns about their children's education. Let's put that up front. But after our next meeting, we should be prepared to actually put something down in writing to begin to dispel the myths.
Thanks, Lee. And policy.
Policy meeting, we had to cancel because of a quorum, but instead we held a meeting with members of the Ithaca Teachers Association to have a conversation with us about the climate and culture survey that was administered in collaboration with Dr. Brown and other folks in the district. It was a great, productive conversation about best ways to support culture and climate in the district. That ended up with the creation of an advisory council at our last board meeting, the Code of Conduct Advisory Council, which will, within a year, give a recommendation to the board about a new code of conduct that we're looking forward to, and may not even be calling it a code of conduct, but still keeping within New York State law. And so that's one of the things that we will be headed at our last policy meeting. And in our continual approach to rewrite our policy manual, we are approaching the 8,000 series, which is the student service series, our student support services, and we will be engaging in that shortly, as the plan. So look forward to more policies coming your way. Board will enjoy it.
Thanks, Sean. So, Dr. Brown.
Thank you for the opportunity, Ms. Nancy. Just one quick item tonight, and this is an effort to over-communicate. We've been talking about the Smart Bond project for a couple of years now, around $2.5 million that was approved many years ago now, and some of that work is beginning to happen in newsletters, in the ICSD Insider. We've done some releases, we've done news stories, and Emily's going to pull up now what's currently on our homepage, and it's a video that includes many of our school administrators talking about the already in place upgrades and some that are going to be coming online in the coming weeks. and I just gotta be very clear, we will have this single point of access, we will have this, you will be buzzed in to the front entrance at every individual school. And this is coming, we've been doing that at Northeast now for a year. And that was after how many parent conversations and PTA meetings, I was in those meetings. But no matter what we've learned is no matter when we go live with this, folks are gonna act like they've never heard about it before. So again, this is an attempt to over-communicate. This is coming online in every building in the school district. And we're doing it building by building, and we're working out the kinks starting last spring at Northeast. And most recently, the last one that came online was, what was the most recent one? South Hill was the most recent one, yeah.
They've been doing it for quite some time.
They've been doing it, yeah.
Similar.
Yeah.
So, Fall Creek and BJM, I think is coming on next week, so they're gonna be rolling out, and we will continue to bring, but this video, I'll ask folks to go to the news story, and you can, oh, this is a touch screen, this isn't bad, this is not nice, you can actually touch the screen. And it comes up, and there's that cool video, and Keith Harrington is there, and Kristen, and I won't play it right now, because it's, hello, that's pretty bad, that's not good. Yeah, but it's there.
Dr. Brown, the music had my attention.
Yeah,
Truly.
I hate him myself.
I did see all the videos.
You see the videos?
But it's not just Keith
Yeah, it's every.
and Kristen, but it's a vignette.
So, yeah.
Whatever that word means, but I don't know.
Yeah. So that's all I have. We have a lot more coming up later, but I just wanted to make sure we, at every opportunity, talk about this culture shift that's going to be occurring, thanks to the new technologies that are coming online. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Dr. Brown?
Yes, please.
When, so we're rolling these out, is there, I thought there was a date this spring when it was gonna be okay, and we're live everywhere, or is that pushed off?
We've had to push that back. We had some issues with the printing of the ID cards that delayed things a little bit, and some other technical issues that we run into. That's why we're rolling out one at a time.
Okay.
So we don't have a hard date for every building.
Good.
But we hope to have them all done before the end of the school year.
All
So
right.
we have about a month to get them all done. And by the start of next year, everyone will be online.
Just thought I'd give you an opportunity to communicate, Dr.
Yes.
Brown, one more time. All right.
Yeah.
So it's.
And for me to publicly say that we missed the deadline to my board president. Yeah, that happens on occasion,
I
even.
could have mistakenly heard or understood what was being said by the administration.
Yeah,
You know, right. That could happen.
Yeah.
Right. So, thank you, Dr. Brown.
Thank you.
It's the water, Dr. Brown, it's the water. We're gonna roll right on at Northeast Elementary School update and Principal Coyle.
Oh, yeah.
I can report that it's going very smoothly, the swipe cards, getting in and out.
So that's the card.
This is
Yeah.
the card, it's
Right.
your ID,
Yeah,
and you
okay.
just swipe it, and you hear a little click, and also the light turns green. There was a question about that, if we had some, hearing impaired folks, hard of hearing folks, the light turns green, and you know it's unlocked, and you come in, and our secretaries are right on their computer, and just click their mouse, and they can speak and into it, and they say, the right door is open, because we have two, and,
Yep.
you know, you inevitably pull the wrong one. So we always say, the right one is open, so it's going well,
So, excellent segue.
yeah.
Everything going well at Northeast?
Oh, I thought it was done.
No.
Oh, I need to talk about it. Just, so I have had an amazing first year, I'm having an amazing first year at Northeast. I started with that little, invented spelling there. All around our school, you will find just little hopeful sayings that children have written in their free time. So, you are strong, said, written very interestingly. So as you go around the school, those are the kinds of things you just see up around. Kids write them, they put them up, and you're gonna see more artifacts like that as I talk. I've really been focusing on the idea of shared leadership. I have had this dog-eared article that I actually printed a new copy of from Educational Leadership since 2001, just sort of staying with me as I've done different things in the district. And it really speaks to a shared vision, participation from everyone in the school, and we've been slowly rolling that out as just a concept. We've always had, I've been a part of Northeast in many ways over the years, we've always had that, but asking the busy, hardworking adults in the building to also wrap their head around, sometimes sometimes logistical pieces, but also some really heavy content of things. For instance, like assemblies. When should we have assemblies? Well, just tell us. Well, let's think about what's best for kids. So instead of me telling, we discuss, and sometimes I get eye rolls at that. But then we discuss the content of it. Well, what's gonna be most appropriate for if we split the assemblies in half? So that's just an example of shared leadership that we go about every day while we're there. So we have been really focusing, as the district is, on innovative teaching and learning. We are focusing on student inquiry, critical thinking, collaboration. The first picture there is of fifth graders, and I had to take it from far away. They are looking at birds up in trees. They're doing a case study on birds. Interestingly, they are sharing, we're doing a lot of informal assemblies where they're sharing their learning with other grades. They have kindergarten buddies, and they shared all about birds. And then you'll see out there, those are hands of kindergartners just in their play outside. They wanted to make nests, and I asked them, why are you making nests? Well, the fifth graders were telling us, and we wanted to help the birds. And then they came up with a very large moral dilemma. You'll see in the next picture, worms. So there's a worm in the child's hand. They were collecting all those worms, and the dilemma was, do we save them and put them back in the grass, or do we put them near the trees for the birds? So there was a lot of discussion at the kindergarten playground about that. So those are the kinds of things that happen. It's not just a lesson, it's all day considering, wondering, do we save the worms, do we save the birds, those kinds of things. So a lot of critical thinking. You'll see in that next row there, our third graders were considering was it like growing up for some of our local leaders. And you'll see one of our local leaders is Leslyn McBean Claiborne, and another one of our local leaders is our own Chris Malcolm there, pontificating to the third grade there. He was a big hit. He got a welcome card. I'm not sure if other folks did, but you got a welcome card when you came in. At the door, you know, like when you come to the airport?
Yeah.
It was like, welcome, Chris Malcolm. Yeah, so, and they, you know, I think they asked some hard questions.
Very hard questions and really engaging questions that made you think, and they were wise beyond their years because it was very much to the experience of growing up and what you engaged in and how it felt and who you were as a person. So it really stuck with me for a while.
Yeah, and it has stuck with them, and they're using those experiences. They have visual anchor charts of what they learned, and then the questions they have to go on. So you made a big impact in their day. Then also, as a part of student inquiry, there was a question posed in the morning news. What toys have you wanted but you were afraid to ask for? And they did a chart for girls and boys, and they really spoke about things that they wanted. And this was student inquiry, and you can go to the next slide, Tracy, because what really ended up happening was this really flowed into culturally responsive teaching. So innovative teaching, culturally responsive teaching all meld together, because from that, they did a whole ad campaign, which was ask me what I want. And so they made gender neutral ads, and we're saying, ask me what I want. Don't just assume in an ad that this is a boy's toy or a girl's toy. They made the decision not to share that with Target because they realized, that came up in the discussion, they realized Target doesn't make the ads necessarily, an ad company does, so they shared it with their families. It's like, that's how they're gonna make a difference in their lives, they get the toys they want. So I thought that was pretty cool. Another thing that's happening is, you'll see in those other three pictures there, those are puppets made with paper towel rolls and plates. And then the music room has been transformed into a puppet show arena. And our amazing Miss N, music teacher, is doing a case study where they are creating a puppet opera based on a folk tale, working with Kay O'Connor Ballantyne, who is a professor at Cornell and a published composer, and they created the prelude music for their puppet opera, and they composed individual sections and then put them together, so they had to work collaboratively and consider the sounds and the puppets and the play and the folktale, and this is all in music class. So it moved over into the gen ed classroom where they were writing and they were performing for one another. In terms of other innovative teaching and culturally responsive teaching, I'm asking the staff to consider when we do field work. So traditionally, an awful lot of field trips happen at the end of the school year, and if you look at our school calendar, we are just full up on field trips. So I'm asking teachers, when they go on their field trips this May and June, to consider where would be an opportunity to do that in the fall so it could kick off work instead of being more celebratory. So if that were your anchor work out in the field, how can you use that through the year? So I'm just asking people to consider and reflect, and again, with the shared leadership, some people are saying, so are you telling us we have to take our field trips in the fall? Like, no, I'm just asking you to consider how would that work for your ongoing studies. So this speaks to how things always really move to action. And we really try and always move to action with things where they're going with things, with the gender neutral, with the plays, they're trying to really act them out and not just sit and learn. On to the next one. Continuing with our culturally responsive teaching work, we have a study group that's called Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Study Group. We meet every other week. It is optional, but we have tripled our attendance in the last couple of months. And I think it's mainly because of something that teachers made up called Friendtastical Fridays. And they're having difficult conversations, and we're finding as we meet, it's really difficult for the adults, not the kids. So, we really asked ourselves, who's having difficulty discussing gender, discussing race, discussing different family makeups? It's not the kids. They're having a great time. They're really honest. They know language that we don't think they know. Appropriate language, labels for different ethnicities, skin tones, talking about poverty. They're honest and they're in a safe place. And so we've really worked to come up with lessons that are one for every week for a month on gender. We've put them out to the whole staff and asked them to consider them. This is when we tripled our attendance, because they said, what is this fantastical stuff that you're doing? So they came in and they listened to each other and considering, what they could do. We also have kids speaking on morning announcements about what they've been doing. We had kids reading poems about their skin color there, and discussing with each other their relative skin colors. And up in the middle of the school, that middle picture, I've just put up, with no explanation, an older curriculum that I worked on with Project Look Sharp called All Our Families. And it just has pictures of families and just asking what you notice. It's right across the hallway from the lunch line. And so kids look at it, they discuss it. I have parents ask me about it. We just talk about different families. So we're really working on that. We're working on building independence, interdependence. We presented, a group of teachers and a group of ESPs presented at the fall PLC day. And the most incredible part of that time was when ESPs spoke to ESPs about the work they were doing in the classroom, about how they are facilitating inclusion with kids, but then purposefully fading out that, really working on building students as mentors. And so that was an exciting time where actually the teachers and myself stepped back and the ESPs had conversations with one another about what's working, the challenges. It was just a very rich discussion. I added in here family uke nights because we have little kids, and it's sort of hard to see on that left one, but in addition to playing the ukulele, which every student in the school learns to play, so you don't have to take an instrument to learn the uke. At the family uke nights, Miss N brings out her bass, and if you come to the family uke night, you get to play her bass. So there's there's a kindergarten and they're playing bass. We also have a very international community, and at Uke Night we have, we sang Frere Jacques in 6 different languages last year. I did not, I listened, but it was amazing that kindergartners, first graders, fifth graders were singing in their home language and learning from one another and being proud of where they were coming from. My last slide is of Ray, who is one of our custodians. And I wanted to end with this. I asked his permission. He exemplifies what we're all working on. So the day after his birthday, he took the day off and he came in for the day and he brought his Hogwarts Castle Legos that he and his girlfriend had been working on for 6 months. It is intricate. On the other side, you can see inside the different rooms. There's the room of requirement. And so he is an expert. He shared his learning. It was authentic learning. He talked about the collaboration so honestly with the kids about how he and his girlfriend had to sort of negotiate who was doing what, and how he felt like he belonged enough to the community that he wanted to take a day off and come in and share with the kids. He was in our library all day long. So it was just a wonderful moment for one of our staff to really be a part of the community. We are extending our work through the summer and next year thanks to amazing funding to work on the ruler implementation. We're working for the year with our adults in the building on how we want to feel at school. That's the first part, and this was the results of some listing and sorting. So that's just a brainstorming of how we want to feel, and I really feel that that picture of Ray exemplifies how we want to feel at Northeast, so we're working towards that. That's all I got.
Questions, comments for Lynn?
Looks like you're doing a lot of fantastic innovations there. I do have one question on a lot of the stuff, like in curriculum committee that with social and emotional learning, you mentioned ruler. How is that, social emotional learning kind of being incorporated?
Well, a lot of teachers at our school, as well as our social worker, have been using the zones of regulation. So they have been doing specific lessons last year and this year. I went to Yale with our social worker and one of our teachers that's been doing zones on purpose because we really want to make this as seamless as possible. So our kids have been getting direct instruction in social emotional learning, vocabulary, processes. I am a student of the ruler program, so I took a course at Columbia. It's from Mark Brackett. So when I came, my language is about that. So I have had the ruler quadrants up. And so when kids come and talk to me, we talk like that. We talk about our best selves. So we're infiltrating it all around the school, the ruler part, and we're working this year to try and make a seamless shift to ruler from the zones.
Go ahead.
To piggyback on that, so what we are learning as we get deeper into understanding your day job is that social emotional learning isn't a panacea, right? It cannot hold against some other things that kids are bringing to us.
Right.
I learned a new word a couple of months ago, dysregulation in little people. And I'm curious how this culture shift, this is clearly a shifting culture, rubs up against, or how it intersects with needing to manage the behaviors of specific children. Sean mentioned the code of conduct. We are hearing more and more that some kids they're having bad days, and they're having them often. So I'm curious how culture intersects with specific babies.
Yeah, well,
How we manage that.
the thing that I'm looking forward to is the shift from zones, which are lessons, and then there are artifacts that kids could refer to, like if they're at the, I don't know zones as well, if they are in sort of like a stop sign, like green, yellow, red, to ruler, which is a part of your everyday life. Like you do check-ins, so kids that come to me dysregulated, we do check-ins on the quadrants of ruler, and we discuss like, is this a good way to be in the classroom? Where do you think you need to be in the classroom? And again, like, these conversations are not hard for our babies. Like, I explained the pleasantness and the energy to a kindergartner who was almost literally jumping off my chairs, and he ran right over and put himself up in the high yellow, and I'm like, you got it. And I said, what do you think your teacher needs? And he put himself down in the green. Like, this was after saying, so this is how pleasant you feel, this is how much energy you feel. And so he was, you know, I didn't need to teach him anything else about that. So as a part of teaching our adults is how do we proactively help kids consider where they are coming in. Like, if you come in dysregulated and you may be way over in the red, you're really angry, have a high energy, what are things we can do proactively before the dysregulation disrupts the class? So I think the two are, I think it's gonna help dysregulation. That's a lot of it.
Okay, and it's okay to also say, we don't expect it to work and dysregulate every kid every time, and we're still gonna have to.
Oh, I don't think it's gonna be, I agree with you,
the babies
nothing's a
when they-
panacea,
Exactly,
we, you know.
they have to be managed.
Yeah, we can't fix trauma. We can't fix devastation emotionally, you know, so it's
What
happening.
is the expectation, you raised another point, and this is rhetorical for you, it's more of a question for us, but Dr. Brown. Are we getting more and more teachers trained in trauma-informed education, and not just a couple of avatars? You know, if we're seeing it, we should be responding to it.
Well, you know, I came into Northeast thinking, I'm gonna work on case studies, and around about December, I realized, we're not ready, we're doing great work, so like I shared all this great work. What the teachers wanted and needed was more work on trauma, and what is trauma, what happens to your brain when you have lived through trauma. So we just shifted all our staff meetings, and I sort of gave it over to, you know, learning about trauma, teaching each other about trauma. So as a staff, we know we need to do that, and they're very interested in it. So we're working on it, there's a lot to do.
Thanks.
Anything else for Lydia? Are we out of our zones of regulation?
You all seem like you're in the green.
Yeah.
Maybe a little lower.
Thank you, thank you, Lydia.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Verba. So
Paul.
we're looking forward to work zones around the district here.
Right,
So,
that's right. We'll have to stay in the green as the dust and the, you know.
Zones with
Might go to the yellow.
construction.
Amanda, do you want? So I brought the brain trust.
And congratulations are in order.
Well, yeah,
The
we can go to the
largest-
next slide.
Yeah, I think when we do that, it's the.
There you go.
81. It's the largest capital project that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Series of capital projects, about 120 million. And the community said yes, and I know you don't have it all fleshed out yet, but they said yes, we said yes.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
now Chris has a lot of work to do.
Chris has been working a lot, has a lot more work to do. Paul has been working tremendously. Casey, who's not here, the team from Campus Construction, the rest of
Right.
Tetra Tech, really, this is, I think this represents that there was a real focus on sort of clarity, information, meeting with people, giving information out and educating the public around sort of what the plan was. And you're right, phase one was very carved out. Phase two, we'll talk about, that's got some structure and some vision to it. Phase three and beyond, over those, you know, years, probably 3, 4 through 10, 12, we know we have a huge document, pages and pages and pages of information that we're going to be prioritizing. So we know what the work is, we just have to take that now and sort of say, okay, when will that occur? So, you know, we just wanted to let folks know sort of where we are at this moment in time, end of May, vote has passed, 2019, sort of what's to come, and we'll do that rather briefly because I think we'll, just like the budget, these will be sort of parts of the agenda often for the board, so then that way we can also share with the public ongoing information. We're also hoping to utilize the website as the warehouse so that you can sort of always put your finger on the pulse of where we are at that moment in time and sort of looking forward as well. So Emily, do you wanna go to the next one? I'm gonna probably turn this one over to Chris to just sort of talk about phase one in terms of, we've completed that planning phase and now on to the design and approval phase, and that's really the architect's zone, so.
So the district did approve Tetra Tech to start working on the first phase of the project, which we've been doing since last summer, in preparation for being able to submit the first phase of work to the state for their review. And essentially what that does is it allows you to get construction work starting like a year earlier than you would otherwise be able to do. So we've, on the first phase, moved through the schematic design phase, which is where we're just very high level, design development, where we're nailing down floor plans and things like that. And now we're wrapping up right now the construction documents, which is putting all the details and stuff on the set of drawings and specifications that we will then submit to the New York State Education Department for their review and approval. Once we get that approval, we will go out to bid, so we'll be soliciting bids from contractors for that work. And we plan to have those bids opened before the end of this calendar year.
And obviously every single stage here has a communication flow between stakeholders. So stakeholders can be the board, it could be the building level principals, it could be the directors, it could be the PTAs, it could be student groups. We've actually been really across the board trying to meet with anybody and everybody that has invited us and or we've even invited ourselves at times. Paul's team has been really key in this. Paul's our director of facilities here for the district and has not only sort of that knowledge of sort of what is there and behind the walls and under the floors, but also the everyday, what's causing the problems through his workforce and his team. He's able to share that with us. And so almost always that communication loop goes back to sort of that team and those members of the team for Ithaca, and then goes back and forth between the architecture firm and the construction management firm. At this point in time also, campus construction is at every meeting. They are timelining this. They're looking at the technical drawings and putting numbers to those so that we know to stay on budget. We're working with our fiscal team as well to sort of think about what's the money that we're going to need up front, what's the money that we're going to need in preparation for construction, and then over the course of time, we will borrow accordingly. So we will not be borrowing that entire amount, we'll be borrowing as we go, as needed, because that's analyzed and scrutinized as much as the drawings from state ed are as well. So that's sort of phase one. So we're moving, we'll be submitting documents very soon to state ed, and then we get in the queue and we wait our turn and we are responsive, and then we'll have a final determination, hopefully in time to break ground on 2020 in the summer. Phase two is also moving forward. If you think about these as sort of columns, and you know, this is not as easy as guess the floor plan picture, or it's easier actually, but these are sort of DeWitt and Boynton are there on your far left. We know that in phase two, they'll be getting main entrance upgrades, as well as the theater / large group instruction area in the middle of those buildings. Those, we're starting to work on those now, and we'll be having advisement, actually from the leadership committees in those buildings. We'll be working with them to really talk through and get the teacher perspective of that, along with the building leader perspective, and we've met with the PTAs and we'll continue to meet with them on those. In the middle there, that's Enfield Elementary. We've gotten a lot of community feedback at all of our sessions around thinking about alternative energy or sustainability, green measures, and so obviously we're taking that very seriously, and we're working through the facilities committee to try to develop a sustainability statement like we had at the last capital project. And then finally, LACS and then South Hill, they'll be getting site improvements as well as main entrance upgrades. So site improvements are typically things that are happening outside. So with South Hill and LACS, we're looking at sort of the, not just sort of the grading and the sidewalking, but at South Hill, we're actually looking at moving main entrances, so that'll be traffic flow and paving and parking. At LACS, we're actually looking at potentially doing the play space outside, enhancing that. Looking at where you sort of have the Gaga Ball pit and that sort of play structure there to be able to have some sort of movement and activity, you know, middle through high school, as well as potentially and hopefully a basketball court, and flattening out that ground with some seating, sort of between the outdoor theater and that playscape. So that'll be happening along with some of the entryways. So that's phase 2, 22, 23. And again, that entire process that we just discussed, including that sort of design phase, all has to happen. And so we'll be consistently sort of cycling through with good communication strategies all throughout. And again, I can't stress enough, we are really committed to trying to put things out onto the website as often and as frequently as possible. And that Let's Talk portal is always there if there are specific questions. We get those quite often. It doesn't just have to be around the vote time, that can happen all throughout the year. And so we really are, you know, welcoming of any sort of feedback or questions that come our way. Paul, did I miss anything from the district perspective?
Just wanted to mention that campus construction, we mentioned briefly, but their involvement so far has been, for me, pretty impressive. We've had meetings not only with district administration, but we've also had many site visits. And Tetra Tech set the table, I believe, for us to expect that from our construction manager, and they've really followed through, and they've already developed a pretty precise schedule for construction to begin next summer. So I just want to give, put that out there that they've been great so far.
And all done in collaboration with building leaders. So every single element of the timeline has been vetted 2 to 3 times to make sure that we didn't miss anything in thinking about our scheduling and our building usage and our community usage of the buildings as well. So that's sort of where we are in the process. And again, we'll keep updating the board and the community frequently.
Right, you mentioned waiting once documents go to the state.
That's right.
Right, we wait on those documents for those projects, but the work is constantly continuing, because as soon as that's approved, we want that next round of docs to go in,
That's
so
right.
we can continue to work essentially on an annual basis. You know, it would be great if we didn't have, just for the sake of getting the work done within that period of time, and making sure we're getting the projects to benefit the students and the staff, right? So,
I just want to say thank you and congratulations on the bond passing, and also I'm really excited. I got a chance to look at it a little bit earlier today, and I felt really excited about a lot of, the plans and the solutions that you've come up with, and I think, so.
anyone else? Anything else from the group?
Public facilities.
I just wanted to say, actually, thank you, Brad. So Brad, has been at every single meeting, sort of the board representative, and he is right. Please come to facilities. We not only will be discussing the capital project of facilities, but we'll also be discussing the safety. On, I think the 18th is the safety overview.
Right.
Mike Simons will be there with the safety plan, but also an update with the smart bond work and sort of all the successes and some of the little hiccups, and those are okay, because we know that those will go away and we'll correct them. So just so you know that will be one of the major focus points on the agenda on the 18th.
Excellent. Anything else? We will see you again. And Chris, thanks for the review earlier today, and we look forward to work going forward. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Is there a score of the Yankees game?
4-1 the last time what San Diego had. 5-1.
Oh, okay. No, he's going home then. Otherwise, we'll just stay here and do more stuff. So in that vein, we're merging athletically with
And I
the
assume
Montessori
this
school.
means the 2019-2020 school year?
I think.
I mean, I
I
it's
mentioned
odd
that.
to approve things retrospectively.
attached, said 2018, 2019.
I assume that's what we mean.
I mentioned,
That was the
I
form.
mentioned that when I saw the
It
agenda.
does say 2018, 2019 on the merger form.
Oh, does
Is the
the
form
form
still
show
set?
up?
The actual form is written in 2018, 2019.
I did point that out, and I said we need to have them updated,
Yeah,
but
maybe
it
we
doesn't
should
look
have
like
them.
it was updated.
Let's have them.
So, right,
Table it, yeah.
just they need to be notified, so contact the ED's department.
Want to table this then for the next meeting?
Yeah.
Do we even have to vote on it? Meaning that it was,
I think you can just go ahead and say we're doing it.
we're gonna table it because it's obviously an inaccurate document.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Your vote.
right, so, go ahead, Pat.
I'm not gonna be here in 2 weeks because I have work-related travel. I have to go to Dartmouth. I don't know how people feel about that.
That's not a real university, no, it is a college, no, it's just a college.
I'm going there for work, it was not my choice. Yes, it does, but since I will not be here, I need a point of clarification on anything sports related because it says all fall, winter and spring, ICSD, sports and girls, girls and boys, and that no ICSD students will be impacted by this. All modified sports, no JV?
We need to get some clarity.
Okay, because
We'll have to vote.
I will not be here to vote, but I have not heard anything this year, but other years I have been concerned if there is a sport that practices cuts, if our kids are
Right.
being displaced, if it's not inclusive, and I just wanted to be able to make that known now.
And consistently at the modified level, we try to, if there's that many kids for soccer, we have another. We have a 7th and 8th grade team, right, trying to.
It's no surprise that I have a very low learning curve when it comes to sports related subjects, and that is the cross that you must bear.
I'll give you some of mine if you give me some of your vocabulary.
Just
A couple of the words, I'll give you a bunch of knowledge.
Just read some Victorian novels, you'll be good.
I'm gonna have to see, have the picture of that. Dr. Brown reading Sense and Sensibility.
No, you get sort of Pride and Prejudice and work your way up to the cartoon.
Well, I'm not sure whether the group appreciates that I even knew what Sense and Sensibility was.
I do, Rob.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna, we beat that up, so let's, approval of board member attending diversity consortium of Tompkins County roundtable meeting.
That will be tomorrow, all day. Correct, yeah.
Yes.
And, Ms. LaFave is gonna be attending.
Oh, Nicole,
Yeah.
okay, all right, I didn't see the name, didn't see
Is this
it.
county?
Oh, there it is.
The county, yeah, Sean is the keynote speaker, and we have some, teachers going, and, yeah, some presenting, it should be a good day.
We don't have to approve Sean speaking. That's a
No, I
different,
guess-
that's a different gig.
I think, yeah.
Couldn't stop it. All right, so now I understand what that's all about. I need a,
I'll move approval of board member attending the diversity consortium of Tompkins County roundtable meeting.
I will second.
second by Eldred.
That's what we do.
We discussed it. Any questions? We're good? All in favor? And we are 7. Sean had to step out, correct? For the records, for the historical accuracy of our meetings. Any other discussion items? Other dates of importance, tomorrow, is it not, the annual meeting for the Central New York?
Yes, and we need to, Lowell's going.
Who's going?
And I'm going.
I was gonna go.
5 of you are going.
Sean, us are going.
We wanna meet here at,
Um,
5:30, meet here at 4:30 or
4:30 here?
4:30?
Cool.
Okay.
I'll ask my boss at work whether I can get off, right, but, oh, that's right, So 4:30 here, it's to start at 5:30 or 6, when does it start?
5:30.
Okay, all right. It's on my calendar, sort of.
Yep.
All right, so that is tomorrow, indeed tomorrow. So I thought we did approve some folks going previously. All right. Apparently there's a keynote speaker. It's not Dr. Brown.
Yes. Or Sean.
Or Sean. So,
Imagine that.
Imagine that. So good. We'll see everybody tomorrow that's going to do that. And there's audit on Thursday. It kind of interferes with my weekly evening plans, but that's okay. So audit on 5:30. Audit's 5:30. It's quarterly. We're getting ready for audit season, right, as we head into the rest of the year. And so that's, did we indeed spend $131 million correctly? We'll find out next year.
I hope not, because we only had.
Right, no, I know, we'll find out next year.
Okay, good.
But this is part of their process. What indeed would we spend our money on?
That's right.
We thank the community for approving the budget, much like the bond at over 80%. We are authorized to spend a little bit over $131 million. A new all-time number. It doesn't seem to go down, Dr. Brown.
Yeah.
The numbers seem to go up. So we will endeavor to, through our best efforts, to make wise use of the funds and the support of the community. And we certainly thank the community for coming out and supporting. At 82%, I'm not sure. Is that the highest?
I've had it.
It's right. That's the highest number that we've seen. I think somebody was pretty happy last year. It was in the 70s. Dr. Brown, you're pretty happy about that. And this year the community supported the mission of the district, as they consistently do. Well, we certainly appreciate it. And I certainly want to thank Tricia, who is not here tonight and frankly deserves a night off. But Tricia and others, but Tricia with her first being board clerk, the election is her responsibility, and it is a big job. It has driven many to distraction, but Tricia hung in there, and it certainly was all night and most of the next day going through that election process and verifying the election results. And so Tricia just did an outstanding job, and we only hope that we didn't wear her out the first election. But hopefully from here on, the first time is always the hardest. So from here on out, she has basically seen it all now. And so we appreciate Tricia's dedication and her just consistently making it happen and doing great work. So we appreciate that. So I don't have anything else.
Add my thanks to the community for supporting the budget. This is the first year in some time. We've been doing this a while, but there was actually people very poignantly saying that they needed to reserve their vote and to vote no simply because they thought they had legitimate causes for concern in how we were doing things. And a lot of us got on various platforms and said, that is your democratic right, but let us help you understand how this financing works. And I think the community understood us. It is not a joke. We are being wise as possible to steward your resources appropriately, but with a permanent 2% tax cap, this is no time to be playing games with our students and the financing. The potential loss we faced was real, and we all doubt if we couldn't count the coins to recover. Let's just put it like that. So again, we appreciate your support. 81% is a true nod to the fact that you think we're being good stewards. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? Moira, go ahead.
In today's New York Times, there was a interview with an LACS graduate, I believe class of 2002, Asia Kate Dillon, who has been quite a groundbreaker as an actress. She was on Orange is the New Black, and she's on the show Billions, and she is also in the third rendition of the John Wick movie, and she's been a real groundbreaker as a someone who is gender non-binary and plays roles of gender non-binary characters. And so it was very, and she didn't mention by name, but she talked about how as going to an alternative high school, LICS, she was able to play roles that weren't, gender confining, and so that started her on what's become a very, very prominent career. And she also took AP Literature at High and was in my class, so.
Now we know the genesis of some of, there we go. No, that's outstanding.
There will be a fourth one too, if you haven't seen it yet. She was good.
Oh, in the John Wood?
Yeah.
Okay. Also a really tall basketball player in that too. But anyway, anything else, folks? Well, very good. Well, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thanks. Great.